Hi everyone, this is David Shaw here at Wild Imagination Photography, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about some very basic post-processing. It's Aurora season right now. It's midwinter. It's here in Fairbanks, Alaska, which means that the Aurora Borealis is dancing many nights. Not often enough, of course, but many nights it's up there. And the days after an Aurora show, a lot of photos ended up on social media and up on the web, and what I've noticed is that there's a really big difference between images captured by professionals and skilled amateurs compared to those of the average individual. And of course a lot of that has to do with knowledge in the field and knowing about your camera and composition and things like that, but I've noticed that a lot of images that are put up by amateurs could be a lot better, not because of what they're doing in the field, but because of what they could be doing on their computer when they get home. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some post-processing of a basic Aurora photo, things that you can do in almost any post-processing program. Even those that came with your camera probably can do most of what I'm going to talk about here in the next couple of minutes. So this is the image we're going to work with. It's an image of the Aurora and on a full moon night that I took last winter. It's a nice shot. It's a little dark. It's not a big booming Aurora display. It was kind of quiet, but I like the composition. I like the way the auroral curtain comes across here at an angle across the frame and makes a nice juxtaposition with the opposite slope of the trees. I like the fact that the full moon sits low and center in the frame in this window created by the trees. It's a decently composed photo. I like it. And it's one that I have not yet processed. So this will be the first time I'm going through this image. And I'm just going to go through it in a very quick way, in a pretty basic way, and let's dive in. So Lightroom is set up. This is the Develop module of Lightroom. Right up here in the top right, you can see we're in the Develop module. And this first area here, the basic section of the Develop module, is basically what I'm going to talk about here. In fact, we're not even going to leave anything here, and I'm limiting my adjustments to this because these are the things that most post-processing programs, from Photoshop to Lightroom to Camera Raw to any number of other post-processing programs, many of those, like I said, that came with your camera, will have similar adjustments. So the top thing here is also one of the first things I always look for, and that is the white balance, the temperature and tint of the white balance. And at night, cameras tend to get fooled. They will push the Aurora kind of often into the yellow spectrum. Skies will turn very purpley, particularly if you live like I do within sight of city lights. They tend to get fooled by those city lights and turn things very purpley. And so I'm just going to take it from its set point just down a little bit in the blue range. I'm going to slide it down to the left just a bit. I don't want to go too far. If you go too far, you can see it gets way too crazy blue. You can use the histogram up here in the top, this area up here, and you can see the distribution of your colors. And I'm too far over, so I'm going to take it, I want to leave a little bit of that purple. The purple's kind of nice, but I don't want it to dominate the frame. And I also want the Aurora not to be yellow-green, but to be its true deeper green. 50 is probably an appropriate place. I ended up at 48.62. Let's take that back down a little bit more. So yeah, somewhere right around in there is probably a good place, and we can adjust that again later if we want to. The exposure of this image is a little bit dark. I think I'll give it about a half a stop. Bring it up just a little bit. Yeah, brings up the Aurora, brings up the sky a touch. Contrast is something I don't often mess around with. I prefer to do my adjustments of contrast down here in this next section, which is the highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. But it is a good place to kind of do these big universal changes, kind of get an idea for what might look good. You take it too far to the left, you can see everything goes gray. You take it too far to the right, and things just start to look weird. I think this image could definitely use a little bit more contrast. I'll use the contrast slider just to add a few points, 9, 10, 11, somewhere around in there, something just to give it a little initial boost. Now my favorite area of this basic develop module is the highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. Highlights is the things that are not blown fully out to white, but are still the bright portions of the frame. And in this case, if you take them too far down, it's not too bad. It darkens the Aurora a little bit if I take it too far to the right, and it just blows out everything in the middle. I think this one has a little bit too much in the highlights, so I'm going to bring it down just a bit. Takes a little bit of that flare out of the bright portion of the moon. The shadows, I would like to bring up a little bit of the shadows because the trees I'd like to be able to see a bit more texture in. Make sure people can see that the snow-covered hillside is there. You go too far and it can get really noisy. Something to watch out for. Digital noise really comes in if you brighten an image too much. But I can add a little bit, maybe somewhere in there, about 35 points. Just enough to bring in some texture into those trees. The whites, the only place that's true white in this image, and actually it's not, even now it's not true white. When I reduced the highlights, it removed a bit of that, but is that moon is the only true white area. I can pull that down if I want. It's also in the stars though, and I want the stars to pop. So this is, and it also will affect the Aurora just a little bit. So I'm going to bring it up a hair, brightens the Aurora, shows the moon, and make sure that the stars are present in the image. Blacks will be the sky and trees, and I'm not sure which direction I want to go with that, so I'm just going to experiment and slide it up and down a little bit. Taking it too far to the right is going to add a bunch of noise, make things look weird. I probably am not going to do too much, maybe darken things just a little bit. Nah, I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to leave the blacks right at 0. Now, clarity is a great tool. Clarity is unfortunately not a tool that is on every post-processing program, but it is a really good one. And what it does is it increases the contrast where dark areas meet light areas. So the trees against the sky, Aurora against the sky, moon against compared to the rest of the background. Areas of high contrast, it boosts. It adds apparent sharpness. And take it too far, take it to the left, and things start to look fuzzy. It can be an interesting artistic effect if that's what you're going for. Most use of clarity is to push it to the right. Go too far over to the right, and it starts to look strange. But what you get to see is that it really starts to bring out, when it's all the way over here, it really starts to bring out the texture in the Aurora. I'm not going to go that far. It's too much. But I am going to boost it a bit to the right. You can see from where it was. As I slide it over, you can start to see texture and brightness start to appear in the Aurora. I'm going to give it a pretty solid boost up to about 45. Vibrance increases the saturation of the less saturated pixels. It's not a global change in the image. It doesn't change every pixel in here. But what it does do is gives a little bit of boost to the low saturation areas, makes the image look a little bit more punchy. It's one you don't want to overdo. You take it too far over to the right, things look oversaturated and kind of fake and yucky. But if you take it, you can give it a pretty solid boost, bring some color into that. I think I'll take it up to somewhere around 40. And that adds a nice little punch of color, but nothing that looks fake. And last is saturation. This is one to be very careful with. If your post-processing program does not give you the option of adjusting vibrance, then you can give it a little bit more of a boost in saturation. But go easy. It's an easy one to overdo. A real hallmark of a poorly post-processed image is oversaturated colors. And you can see if I take that slider all the way over to the right, it starts to look really fake. And you will see images end up around Facebook this way, but this is not how things look, and it's not how things should look, in my opinion. So I go easy, rarely more than 10 points, usually closer to 5 or 6, enough to give it a little bit of a pop, but nothing outrageous or outlandish in terms of the color. So in this image, I think we'll settle on, let's take it to, say 5. Enough to give it a little bit of a pop, but nothing outrageous. So that, just a couple of minutes, we made some quick adjustments, and you can see the difference. This here on the left is the original image as it came out of my camera, and here on the right we can see what we've done. The Aurora stands out much better. We have some nice pop of colors. We didn't change the overall composition of the image, but it's a big improvement over the original, and it's something that you guys can do on just about any post-processing program. So there you go. I hope this helps you next time you take a picture of the Aurora Borealis and share it my way. You can find me on Facebook, Wild Imagination Photography, or on the web, wildimagephoto.com. And thanks for joining me.